Being a NASCAR fan sometimes feels like riding the craziest roller coaster in all of sports. One moment you are cheering for a fantastic run on track, and the very next moment something incredibly tiny completely alters the narrative of a race. And this week we actually have two stories that perfectly demonstrate why NASCAR is never dull. The first one is about a moment during the event that was determined by something so unbelievably minor that a lot of fans are still scratching their heads about it. The second story could result in a major driver sitting out a Cup Series race this month, and the team already has multiple contingency plans prepared just in case things unfold at the worst possible timing. Both of these situations involve big names and big consequences. And truthfully, they reveal a lot about how unpredictable this NASCAR season is beginning to feel. So you are definitely going to want to stick around for the entire video. And real quick, if you are a genuine NASCAR fan like me and you follow the sport every single week, go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. This channel is brand new and we are working toward reaching 1,000 subscribers. The mission here is straightforward, a place where dedicated NASCAR fans can discuss racing the way we actually discuss it. All right, let us get into it. This first story involves Bubba Wallace during the NASCAR Cup Series event at Phoenix Raceway. If you watch the race, you know Wallace and the 23 XCI Racing number 23 Toyota were having a genuinely solid afternoon. He was running inside the top 10 for most of the event, showing real speed on the long runs, and his pit crew was doing an excellent job keeping him in contention. He eventually crossed the line in 6th, which is still an excellent result considering how competitive the 2026 field is. You have teams like Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing, Team Penske, and Trackhouse Racing all bringing fast cars every single week. So finishing 6th is not something you just stumble into. You have to earn that result. But the wild part is that his finish could have been even stronger if not for one tiny detail on pit road. And when I say tiny, I mean microscopically tiny. Bubba Wallace was penalized for exceeding the speed limit on pit road. Now here is where the story gets absolutely absurd. Wallace was only 0.08 mph above the speed limit. Let me say that again. 0.08 miles per hour. That is essentially nothing. To put that in perspective, the pit road speed limit at Phoenix Raceway is typically around 35 to 45 miles per hour. So Wallace was going maybe 35.08 instead of 35.00. The difference is so small that you would never be able to detect it with the naked eye. You would need precise electronic timing equipment to even measure it. But NASCAR regulations are crystal clear. If you are above the limit, then you are above the limit. There is no grace period. There is no margin of error built into the system. The line is the line, and if you cross it by even 1/100th of a mile per hour, you are getting penalized. Because of that penalty, Wallace was sent to the back of the field, which obviously damaged his track position. He had to fight his way back through the pack, burning up his tires, using up his energy, and losing valuable time. If you are Bubba Wallace in that situation, it has to feel like an absolutely brutal break. You did everything right on the track. Your car was fast. Your team was executing. And then you lose it all because of 0.08 of a mile per hour on pit road. And Wallace was not the only competitor dealing with this at Phoenix. Two-time Cup Series champions Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson were both flagged for exceeding the speed limit on pit road as well. Think about that. These are 3 of the most experienced drivers in the entire Cup Series. These are not rookies making rookie mistakes. These are veterans who understand pit road speed better than almost anyone. And all 3 of them got flagged. That demonstrates just how tricky pit road speed management was during the Phoenix event. But even with those penalties, the strangest moment of the entire race belonged to Ty Dillon. And honestly, this might be one of the wildest pit road incidents I have seen in a very long time. Dillon received an infraction listed as removing equipment from the assigned pit area. That sounds simple on the surface, but what actually took place was absolutely insane. The number 10 car departed pit road with the fuel can still connected to the car. Let me paint this picture for you. Ty Dillon came into pit road for a routine stop. The crew started fueling the car. And then for whatever reason, whether it was a miscommunication or a premature release signal, Dillon pulled away from the pit box while the fuel can was still attached. And he did not just pull away and stop. No. Ty Dillon ended up driving an entire circuit around the 1-mile oval at Phoenix with that fuel can dangling on the car, an entire lap around the whole track with a fuel can bouncing and hanging off the side of the car. It appeared absolutely ridiculous on television. Now I know some fans found that hilarious, and honestly it did look pretty comical. But a fuel can is not a small piece of equipment. It is heavy. And if it had come loose at speed and bounced onto the racing surface, it could have caused a very dangerous situation for other drivers. Imagine a car hitting a fuel can at 130 mph. That is not funny. That is potentially catastrophic. The biggest relief is that nothing hazardous occurred, because that could have turned serious extremely quickly. The event itself had plenty of mayhem, but in the end, Ryan Blaney managed to navigate everything and bring the victory home for Team Penske. That victory pushed Blaney up to second in the overall Cup Series championship standings behind Tyler Reddick. And speaking of Reddick, let us put the current standings into context. Reddick leads with 225 points after 4 races, having won 3 of the first 4 events. Behind him is Blaney in second after the Phoenix win. And then Bubba Wallace sits in third. That is right. Despite the pit road penalty that cost him at Phoenix, Wallace is still third in the championship standings. Both 23XE racing cars are in the top 3. Tyler Reddick first, Bubba Wallace third. That is domination. Michael Jordan's team is not just competing, they are taking over, and that makes our second story even more significant. Now let us shift to the second story, and this one could have a much larger impact on upcoming events. Bubba Wallace might actually sit out a NASCAR Cup Series race this month. The reason has nothing to do with penalties or competition. It has to do with something far more important: family. Wallace and his wife Amanda are expecting their second child very soon. And this is where it gets really personal. Earlier this campaign, Bubba made something extremely clear. When their first son Brexton was born, he was not present because of racing obligations. He was at the track. He was doing his job. And he missed one of the most important moments of his life. This time around, he stated he does not want to miss the birth again. And honestly, that is something every single fan can appreciate. It does not matter what team you cheer for. When a man says, "I want to be there for the birth of my child," you respect that, period. However, from a competition standpoint, this creates a complicated situation for 23XI racing because pregnancies are unpredictable. The baby could arrive at any moment, and you cannot just put any driver into a Cup Series car. The seat has to be molded to the driver. The pedals have to be adjusted. The steering wheel position has to be modified. Every driver has a different body type, so swapping drivers is not as simple as handing someone the keys. Wallace's spotter, Freddie Kraft, discussed this on the Door Bumper Clear podcast and explained that the team actually has 3 separate contingency plans depending on when the baby decides to arrive. Plan A is Corey Heim. For those who do not know, Heim is a young, talented driver who has been making a name for himself in the NASCAR Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. He is considered one of the brightest young talents in the Toyota development pipeline. However, there is a complication. Corey Heim and Bubba Wallace do not fit the cockpit in the same manner. They have different body types, different heights, different builds, which means the team would require at least a full day of preparation to modify the car. That means Plan A only works if the team knows ahead of time. Plan B kicks in if the situation develops suddenly. If Amanda goes into labor only a few hours before the event, then Wallace could have to depart immediately. No time for full car adjustments. In that scenario, the team would go with a different driver whose body type is similar to Wallace's, so the seat and pedal positions would not need significant changes. The team has not revealed who this driver is, but they have someone specific in mind. And then there is Plan C, the most dramatic scenario. What happens if Amanda goes into labor during the race itself? What if Wallace is strapped in, the green flag is already dropped, and he gets the call that his wife is heading to the hospital? In that scenario, the team would need a relief driver, Someone already at the track, already in a fire suit, already prepared to jump in. Imagine that. Bubba Wallace pulls into pit road during a caution. He unbuckles, climbs out, races to the hospital, while a backup driver climbs in and finishes the race. That sounds like something out of a movie, but in NASCAR it is absolutely possible. Amanda's due date falls around the time of the NASCAR Cup Series event at Darlington Raceway on March 22nd. For those who do not know, Darlington is one of the most iconic tracks in NASCAR. They call it the track too tough to tame. Missing a race at Darlington would be a significant sacrifice, but for Wallace, the choice is clear. Family comes first. Now the question fans immediately raise is about the championship. What happens if a driver sits out a race? Under NASCAR Cup Series regulations, drivers need to participate in every event to remain eligible for the playoffs. However, NASCAR does permit waivers under certain circumstances. We witnessed something similar when Denny Hamlin sat out the Cup Series event in Mexico City in 2025, and NASCAR still granted him a waiver. And here is the interesting connection. Denny Hamlin is not just any driver. He is the co-owner of 23XI Racing. He is Bubba Wallace's boss, so Hamlin himself has been through this experience. He knows the stress, he knows the uncertainty, and he knows NASCAR will likely do the right thing. Because of that precedent, it is highly likely Wallace would receive the same waiver. And honestly, that feels like the correct decision. No one should have to choose between their career and being present for the birth of their child. And the way 23XI Racing has handled this situation says a lot about the culture Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin have built. They have not pressured Wallace to choose racing over family. They have simply prepared for every scenario and told Wallace to do what he needs to do. In a sport that has historically demanded total sacrifice from its competitors, that kind of culture stands out. When you step back and examine both of these stories together, it truly demonstrates how unpredictable NASCAR can be. One moment, a driver loses track position because of 0.08 mph on pit road. The very next moment, that same driver might have to step away from the car completely because he is about to become a father once again. That is NASCAR. Tiny margins, massive moments, and real life unfolding right in the middle of it all. It is why we love this sport. It is why we tune in every single week. Now I want to hear your perspective. Do you believe the penalty for Bubba Wallace at Phoenix was too severe? 0.08 mph is basically nothing. Should NASCAR have some tolerance built in? Or do you agree that rules are rules? And if Wallace sits out Darlington, do you believe Corey Heim is the right competitor to step in for the number 23 car? And looking at the standings with Reddick first, Blaney second, and Wallace third, do you think 23XI Racing can maintain this pace all season? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this kind of genuine NASCAR conversation, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to NASCAR Track News. We are working toward 1,000 subscribers, a place where dedicated NASCAR fans discuss the sport honestly every single week. Thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next video.